Recording is in progress now, and we are doing this seminar in English in order to also be able to talk to people who are not native Danish speakers here. I know that there are some that are actually not native Danish speakers at this webinar, so it's to see you all. And yes, why don't you just start and tell us about your slow science education?
Yeah, well, thank you and welcome to my presentation. So my name is Therese and I will present my preliminary findings about slow, not necessarily science education, but slow education in a primary and secondary school context. And I've been working on a sort of literature study, and I will show you some of my findings from that. So let's get started. And first, I would like to share a memory with you, and this is me. And as you can see, I'm smiling all over my face, and I'm looking at something that really excited me. And this was a really joyful moment where I felt like 10 years old again. I was visiting Copenhagen Zoo back in August, and I'm hoping you are a bit curiosity about now what am I looking at. And of course, it was the panda bear. So when I saw this panda bear, I was really excited. It was my first time seeing a panda. And this fellow down here was eating bamboo. And it was so slowly. He was just like chilling and eating and peeling off the outer layer of this bamboo, leaving the leaves behind and like eating slowly. I could have looked at him all day, observing him and just like enjoying this vision. So for me, this was like slow. It was a slow meeting. It was also very joyful. And it also piqued my curiosity. What is this panda kind of an animal? So that was just like a way of engaging with a space and a place and a phenomenon. I'm now thinking of a panda as a phenomenon that was joyful. And that is some of the key points or keywords I would like to take further into this presentation. So I'm having a bit of difficult seeing my whole presentation, so I'm just like switching the pictures off. So inspired by the slow education and slow pedagogies principles, my PhD project seeks to counteract the pressure of fast schooling. I will return to that term later on. By creating timeless spaces where students can engage meaningfully with scientific content and phenomena. And I listed 3 research questions, and for this presentation, I will only consider it my first research question. And it sounds like this: what national and international research findings exist within slow approaches in science education? And the quick answer to that is 0. I haven't been able to find any slow approaches in science education, but I have been able to locate some approaches and thoughts and examples of slow approaches in education in general, and also in a primary and secondary school context. So the science part is where my project end up with having to find out what that could be. Very short on the literature study. I wasn't able to come up with a search protocol in the databases. Slow as a term, as a keyword, doesn't exist other in the context of slow learner. So that wasn't what I needed for this one. So searching on slow education or slow pedagogies or something like that didn't have any results. I traced back Holt and Payne and Watchow as the core references. Holt is the first one to suggest the term slow education, and Payne and Watchow suggest the term slow pedagogy. That's how far back I could trace those terms. And I ended up with making a citation search for those two core references, and then also snowballing. So I have like a lot of references concerning slow or something with slow in education. And I categorize them in like 5 themes. And I'm only going to speak about theme 1 for this presentation. And as you can see, 43 of the references has something to do with that. And I excluded down to only 12 references. And those are basically peer-reviewed, and there are some book chapters and whole books, and they are all writing about slow in a primary and secondary school context. So now I want to show you what my main findings are. And some of the issues I met in my analysis of these references was the use of the term slow education and slow pedagogies. There wasn't any consistency in how they used those two words. So I tried to find something else to like capture it all. And then that ended up being slow educational philosophy. And we have slow educational philosophy that concerns with 3 levels: a societal level, a learning theory level, and a pedagogical and practical level. And in those 3 levels, I also, the literature answers different kinds of questions, and those are the ones I listed down here. So if we move to the first level, the societal level, the role of education and schooling, if you ask slow, what would that be? So first of all, they would critique the term they call fast education. And as you can see, there's some kind of different aspects in what is fast education. The first thing, that would be information overload. That would be about covering goals, concepts, materials, and themes. And knowledge is defined as information. So that was one thing. Then there's the input and output learning view. So if I put this in my teaching, I expect this to come out. And we have things like testing, predefined learning outcomes, and product over process. And another thing is that they critique these standard routines and procedures in teaching and education. And lastly, competition, speed, and efficiency are some of the main characters or things that these references are critiquing in fast education. And we can trace fast education back to some sort of social paradigm. We have this paradigm that more is better, faster is better, and we need to run as quick as possible in our society. So there's a critique on on the fast running society. And we can see how that affects our educational system. Some of these, I think it was Holt, used the term hamburger approach, and I find that's a funny way of expressing it. But if you use the hamburger approach when you teach, you would like do the same hamburger all over the time, and not necessarily create something new or creative thinking of ways of how we learn. And we have these like standardized procedures where we think that if we follow this straight line, we come to goal. We learn what we need to learn. Yeah, I think that was about that. And then I jump back to my schedule here. So the societal level, the role of education and schooling, if you ask slow, that would be to make room for a teaching and education where creativity, critical thinking, resilience, engagement, persistence, humor, and reliability, enthusiasm, civic mindedness, and self-awareness, joy, and care are what we aim for. And those are not necessarily measurable things, but those are, in my point of view, the most important thing, or one important aspect of going to school would be to have a joyful time, to come to school, to be joyful and have a good learning experience. That would be like, that would be a good thing. And we need to find time to make that happen. And I think that's what many of these articles and the literature concerning slow education actually wants. They want to have another pace in education and in schooling. So that was like, why slow education? We need to stop the acceleration. We need to critique the impatient society that want quick results, and we need to also critique this fast educational system. And now we move on to the next part, the learning theory level. And I'm just trying to slow down because I can feel that my speaking pace is going up when I'm a little bit nervous. So I'm trying to relax a little bit and be slow myself. So in this learning theory level, the learning philosophy, we are concerned with the learning philosophy, the view on student, and knowledge. And what would that look like if we ask slow? So what is slow education? And I have a little slide here. So when I look at all these slow literature references that I found, it's a lot of things. It's a multifaceted approach you could start with. So you can do many things, and you could say that would be slow. It would combine aspects from different learning theories and pedagogical approaches. So again, many things could be put into what is slow education. It has different kinds of values and ethics. It's occupied with social skills and individual growth, diversity, inclusion, and community. And I find this community fascinating and something we could really take into account. And then they have like two overarching themes, and that would be time and it would be connectedness. So I've tried to make some kind of illustrations of these two overarching themes and how they are linked. And the first thing I want to show you is how this time aspect, what do we need in slow education in regarding to time? So we need to take time in teaching and in education to engage with whatever we need to learn or the materials. We need to have time to think. We need to have time to talk and reflect. We also need time to just be and grasp and do and take care of each other and care for the subjects that we are engaging with. And then also time to revisit, to have another go, to look at something that we looked at for 6 months ago or a year ago, and revisit our understanding of it. And you could say that what we want to do here is we want to de-accelerate education, the de-acceleration of education. And we also want to make room for a natural learning pace. We need to take the time that things take, and I will get back to that. But that's an important frame in science education. Things take the times things take. So we cannot force something through. And then if we think of time and connectedness, if we have the time to do all these things, all these what do you call that, elements that I kind of thought about here, pointed out here, we also have the time to connect. Connection takes time, you could say, and we need to connect to 4 aspects. We need to connect to ourselves. We need to connect to the community. And when I say we, I mean the students, but you could also think of the teacher here. And we need to connect to the place, and we need to connect to the phenomena or the content we are engaged with. So when we connect to ourselves, we would be one way. when we connect to ourselves, or the students connect to themselves, they would like be hopefully joyful. They would feel joy. They would take ownership and be interested in what they are engaging with. But that takes time. They also need to connect to a learning community. Our caring classroom, you would see the classroom or the whole school as a learning community. But you could also go further and like look at the local culture and history as a community where you can engage with learning processes in a collaborative environment. You would also need to connect to place. That could be like nature, or it could be some space at school or in the schoolyard or wherever you are. It could be at the local town. But what we are interested in here is that we want to become familiar with a place. We want to come to know it, and we do that by revisiting it. To become familiar and to connect to a place is something that also takes time. And you need to do that multiple times, not just one time, not one field trip to a river or a forest or something like that, multiple times. Coming back, looking at the tree you looked at last year and see how does it look like now. And then you have the phenomena, and I put my panda in here, and it could also be like the moon, or it could be plants growing, or it could be many things here. This is where I think we could put the science part in. So finding some good science phenomena that we could connect to. And I tried to like, this is what the literature states, these connectedness to 4 aspects and the time that we need to do good learning processes. So I tried to combine them, and this is one of the things that I would like your inputs on when my speaking here is done. So I'm sorry, I didn't have the time to translate this. So this is with Danish terms right now. But this is Ilarice's learning triangle, and right now there are coming red things on my screen. I don't know if I did something. And what I tried is that I tried to put some of the slow literature's terms and values and visions under Ilarice's 3 main terms here. So that would be content and motivation and interaction. And I also tried to like circle it around with some words, and that would from top, that would be a natural learning pace or natural pace. It would be patience and cyclical time, and then immersion. So the things here, the motivation part was actually kind of easy. It was kind of easy to finding what would slow educational philosophy think would be the motivational power for learning, for this acquisition process to actually take place. And then there's the content, and this is where my work for now is kind of stuck. This is where I need to dig further and do some more research and investigation on what would be slow knowledge in science education. What would be the skills we need? And this could also be where we put like slow phenomena in. And then there's the interaction, and this is where this community would go in and be a big part of learning in a slow educational philosophy. So this one, I think you will have the enjoyment of returning to later on today. And this leads me back to my schedule here. So we have the 2 first levels, the learning theory level now, and you can see I filled in like here. So what would the learning philosophy be here? It would be like learning in a community. It would be about seeing the learners as a multiplicity and diversity, to like engage in that and be aware or embrace that we are different and learned differently. And then it would take time to to make space for slow learning processes. That we don't need to haste, we don't need to skip things, or to push things through. So it would advocate for a rethinking of time, and then it would be advocate for learning from and through different types of connectedness. So now we are looking at the last part, and I'm not sure how long I've been talking, but I think I still have a few minutes left. So the pedagogical and practical level, that would be like slow pedagogical and didactical approaches. And what would they look like if you ask slow? So how to practice slow? So I have some main slow principles that I discovered from the literature. And the first thing would be like, or first advice would be slow down the process. So if you have students in your classroom or out in the field or in the schoolyard, you would choose and pick tools that would slow down the process. So if you ask the slow movement, you should choose your pen instead of computer. You would draw instead of copying, or finding pictures on the internet. And if you notice that my headlines are all made in hand, that's me engaging in slowing down the process when I had to prepare this presentation. So that's an example of slowing down the process. And when doing that, my own experience is that my thinking in reflecting on what do I want to say becomes more clear to me. I have time to process it. So that's one thing. And then the other thing would be engaging in slow phenomena. And I put like the panda in here because I think that's a slow phenomenon. But also like changing in moon phases would be a slow phenomena. You could teach that in like one lesson or two lessons. You could show the children how this moon phase shift works and why it works, blah blah blah. But you could also like take the time and observing and drawing the moon through a 4-week of period, and then you have something to engage with and finding and reflecting over. So that would be an example of a slow phenomenon, and also the principle of that things take the time things take, and you cannot force a learning activity in a shorter period of time than that. And then it would also be to make room for unexpected adventures. What does the students fall upon? What do they find? What motivates them? And perhaps they come up with some idea that you even didn't think about. And it would also be using multiple meaning making. That could be like art and storytelling and a whole lot of things that we are already investigating and doing research on. For example, creative or artful ways of comprehending the findings that we are, our learning experiences and so on. So I think that slow education philosophy somehow comprehend many things and many aspects of educational research and findings that we already know, but this could be like an sort of umbrella over all that. So I turn back to this now. Now I have filled it out. So the pedagogical and practical level here would be like storytelling, narratives, inquiry, and that could be different kinds of inquiry, not only scientific. It would be dialogue, and it would be arts, and many more. You could probably put a lot of more in here. And we have these principles, slowing down the process, finding slow phenomena, and then finding rooms for where you can like have no ticking clock. That like puts a barrier on how deep can we dive, or what can we go around, and perhaps do these kinds of unexpected adventures. So I think that would be my presentation. I have this one, and I'm not sure whether we should like start with perhaps discussing this schedule and my characteristics of a slow educational philosophy. That would kind of be interesting to hear you respond to that. And then afterwards I could show you my idea, my slow idea. I have come up with a slow idea. I don't think it's anything ordinary or brand new or original. I think it's done before, but I would like to share with you what I could see as a slow approach to teaching in like 5th grade or something in nature and technology in a Danish context. So would that be like a plan that we start with this one? Yes, I can see now that Connie is nodding. I turned on the videos again, so I can see you now.
Yeah, I think that would be a good idea, Therese. So thank you for presenting, and audience, please feel free to turn on sound and video so we can interact, and any questions or comments that you have or curiosities that you have for Therese's work, it would be great to hear them now. And I can see that we have someone in the chat saying that they have contributed the lines in Therese's drawing. So actually, you can annotate Therese's slides by drawing on them directly. So that's a good feature to be able to engage with. Therese, I would like to start by asking you about the previous slide. I think there was a something, a little drawing or a collage or something like that that you had made.
Yeah, I skipped
where
that.
it says fænomentid and process time. And is that actually a collage that you have made?
Yeah, I made that.
Can you tell a little bit about it while people are thinking about what to respond to?
Yeah. So I made this collage at a PhD summer school just before the SERA conference, and I was like occupied with this. It's like 2 terms of time. So you have the phenomenon time, that would be how long does a phenomenon take? And that could be like the moon. It could be how long does it take to build a fire, and no, that's not. That's how long does it take to boil water? That could also be like a phenomenon time. I'm not sure I can see the number 2 picture, but there's also like some kind of fruit. So how long does it take to when can you pick your apples on your tree in the autumn, from the first little flower nut in the spring, and then you can pick it as a juicy apple in the autumn. That would be like a phenomenon time. This is just me like doing some kind of philosophy over time. So that was my thoughts about that. And then there's the process time. How long does it take to do something with your hands? That could be like cutting in wood, or it would be like making a drawing, or some kind of different kind of processes that also takes time. So this is not something that I'm finished with yet, but it's something that I'm working on from time to time. So more like my own philosophical on time.
Right.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you. And it's nice to see the kind of the images that you're working with and how you are using them to make sense of the different concepts of time. Yeah. So now you can go back to your table if you want, so people can. You were asking for responses and reactions to this.
Mm-hmm.
So comments, reflections from the participants here.
Can I ask you?
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Teresa, for your presentation. It was grateful. Really good approach. Very great idea to use slow pedagogy. And for me, slow pedagogy, maybe it's about for understanding, because if you have time, you have enough time, you can understand something better. It reminded me of our school time when everything went too fast, and I sometimes only learn it for the test, but not for real understanding something things. When there was more time, I could really enjoy learning, I think. And I have two short questions for
Yeah.
you. First, can you give an example where a slow approach helped children understand science better? It's one question, and one more. How do children react to slow pedagogy? Does it feel nature for them, or maybe a bit unusual? What do you think about it? Thank you very much.
Yeah, you're welcome. Well, I'll try my best to answer your questions, because you can say my PhD project here. I'm going to investigate how could slow science education look like in a school context. So I have not any like results on the children's or the students' aspects or reactions to it yet, but I can give you an example where in my own teaching experience. I'm a school teacher originally, and I taught in this was fourth grade. We had what do you call that? Well, we have a learning activity concerning the moon, and I had the students taking photos of the moon every day, or almost every day. And every day we met, I had them at nature and technology a subject, and I also had them for mathematics. So I almost saw the class every day. And we draw the moon from their memory and their photos, and we made a whole wall with big pictures of the moon and the faces, how it shifted. And that took 4 weeks, and it was collaborative. We were a community, and it didn't end quite as I expected, because one day they had a substitute teacher. I don't know if that's the word. And he was like, "Oh, you are having about the moon. I can tell you why it shifts the faces." And then he spoiled it for me. But what I experienced in that teaching method and that approach, and this was before I knew that could be called a slow approach, was this learning community, and also the time for the students to actually think about, was this a good method? So one of the students raised his hand and said, "I don't think this is a good way of doing it. You are drawing what we are saying, and I don't think that is quite accurate." And I don't think we could have had that sort of discussion if we was just like rushed through it. So that was one experience, and I like when I shifted from primary school and then to teacher education to become a teacher there, I moved on with how could we teach about the moon in a slower approach. Still not calling it a slower approach, but taking the time. So I made Connie, jeg mangler lidt ord. Undervisningsforløb.
Hvad?
Undervisningsforløb. The teaching design.
Yeah, that's a good translation.
So I made a teaching design where you observe the moon and like measuring the distance between the moon and the sun with a fist, and seeing how that transforms over a period of a fortnight, and making drawings about that. I only have teacher students' reactions to that, but one of my teacher students said to me later on that, Therese, it's like ever since we did that moon thing, it's like I know the moon. It's like it's familiar to me. So it does something. It does something to the students when they can engage, whether you're an adult or if you are a child. It does something that we take the time. And yeah, we need to take the time to do this, and then we need to select what do we then, what do we not teach. So we have some kind of choice we need to make. Where does it make sense to take a good time, and where can we speed up? So a part of this slow movement or slow educational movement is also about choosing when you want to be slow and choosing when you want to be fast. It's okay to be fast, but you can't be fast all the time, and you can't not be slow all the time. So we need to pick, where do we want to be slow, where do we want to dive and immerse in the subject or in the content, and then we need to find calm in that. Sometimes my big some of the things I struggled with was that when we did this immersive deep dive, I run faster afterwards. So all the good intentions just kind of clicked. I don't know what to call it, but it's important to be calm about it and say we don't need to cover all the content in our subjects. We can't do that. Yeah. So that would be. I hope that was an answer to your questions.
Thank you very much, dear Therese, and I wish you all the best for your professional life in the future. Thank you very much. It was
Thank you.
very interesting.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sagi. And Therese, can I just ask? You said that that the substitute teacher who came in and told about the phases, actually, you said he ruined it for you.
Yeah.
Can you explain a little bit more of what happened, or why did it ruin it for you? And then I can see Daniel has raised his hand for afterwards.
Yeah, well, I can try to answer it quickly, because my intention with the student were to, like, how can we make sense of the drawings? How can we make sense of this model or representation we did ourselves? And how can we combine it with the scientific model? And he did this like a traditional teacher thing where he just tells students how things work. And that was not my intention with it. Yeah. So I wanted
you were wanting to do the process with the children.
Yeah, I did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Thanks. Daniel.
Hi, Therese. Thanks. I have sort of a question, because in some ways this notion of like slow education sort of goes against everything that we see in education at the moment in science learning, in terms of like the platformization and the scaling up of activities, the sort of constant engagement, the lack of time for teachers and students to have agency. So I guess my question is, where do you see this being positioned? Is it something that happens at the teacher level? Is it something that happens sort of at the national level? Does it happen all the time, or does it happen in special periods?
Well, that's a good question. I would like for this to happen all the time and also at national level. But in my project, I'm starting with 2 teachers and a teacher team at 3 different schools. So I would start with the teachers. My interest is in finding out where they see the barriers and obstacles for making these time-based decisions on what we teach and how we teach and what activities we choose, and when we choose to stop an activity and move on to the next subject. So I want to investigate that with my teachers, and hopefully I could take it further. I think this could also be very interesting for these new fagbeskrivelser that actually are deleting or changing the amount of goals that we think we should cover. But then we also need to like have a discussion. Then what do we then do? How do we teach when we have this time, or do we have this time? How would teacher actually translate these new descriptions or plans for the subjects. That would be kind of interesting to be a part of that and to have some kind of new understanding or new ideas about it. Yeah.
I just have one more question. I was thinking a little bit about the relationship between the sort of, slow movement, but also this sort of the notion of problem-based learning, in this sort of aspect where, I guess maybe 10 or 15 years ago, there was this notion where students could have like a problem-based thing where they could go and spend a certain amount of time, to solve whatever problem they would like. And sort of connecting that also to sort of curiosity. And I wonder if you're sort of trying to look at that, because in some ways, when you look at, let's say, the failed sort of digital fabrication movement with fab labs in every school, there was part of the challenge was that sort of curiosity and the slow learning. What do you do with a fab lab? If you're not making, like laser cut, keychains or something, or 3D prints of superheroes. So I guess is that sort of question of, what's the relationship to problem-based learning, where students have a lot more agency to define, and curiosity and creativity to like slow learning and slow educational philosophy and science education?
That's a big question. I think.
Yeah, it's more of a comment. So
yeah. Well, it's interesting because you could as well. I've one of my references actually combined slow education with what do you call that? ICTK, like some kind of digital or
information communication technology.
Yeah, exactly. And try to like the slow principles, you could translate them into to that kinds of activities and like making sure that the time is given at the right moments, you could say. But and then I also think that as a parallel, because Holt, the start of this, uses the term PBL, but he uses it in project-based learning as an example. So there are some parallels, and I think that the idea I have for you from the next part here is it would be project-based learning. So we have a project or something we want to solve in our community or in our classroom, and that's our project. But it's not necessarily a problem that we need that we come up with a solution for. But it's a project that we work on together. Yeah.
All right, great, thanks. I look forward to hearing more.
Thank you.
Yes, and Wasim, nice to see you.
Nice. Thanks for the invitation and for the presentation, Teresa. Frankly, I have questions about the term acceleration. If you can elaborate what this term mean in your settings. Is this about acceleration in classroom settings for child?
That would more translate back to like Hartmut Rosa's descriptions of acceleration and
social acceleration.
Yeah.
And my next question is, if it's a social acceleration by Hartmut Rosa, I think Rosa suggested as a solution not slow approach but resonance approach, if I understand Rosa correctly. And frankly, I test some resonance approach, but for not child, for adults. And why you select slow approach and not resonance approach, for example? Why Rosa suggestion is not included in this solution?
Well, I think I'm familiar with the resonance approach. I haven't dived into it yet, but it's on my bookshelf, so I'm thinking of diving into that I would expect to find some kind of overlapping themes with slow education. I would certainly do that. I would expect there would be overlaps and that they would like have some similar perspectives on how we should think about education and teaching.
One more questions because I'm interested. What about arts? Because you find some form of arts can be slow and can be fast. Frankly, I test with some friends here in my cities dance as form to solve this fast education, and we organize some dance, but we don't know how to how to complete the experiment. Have you done some experiment with art? And if yes, what was your outcomes? What was your finding if art can work?
Well, not other than my own experience. Like, for example, the collage making, when I need to like comprehend something or understand what do I think of these concepts or terms I use. I'm not very artful myself, but I like to engage in these processes because it's kind of a thinking room. Yeah, you could say that it's a reflection room. And I just joined a course with Connie the last week, and we also had like experience with clay and working with that. And my experience is that many of these materials, and when you do something with your hands, actually, I feel that time is stopping. I have no sense of time anymore, and I think that's a nice place to be. And I think that would also be a good place for our students in school to be, to have that room where time stops and there's no pressure, and you can just be with the material and be with the phenomenon you are investigating. So yeah, unfortunately, no, not bigger experience with artful approaches yet, but perhaps I would have some later on in my project.
Okay, thanks for your answer.
Welcome.
Thank you, and thank you for the question, Wasim. And now, Sakina.
Oh, you need to turn on your mic.
Yeah.
Thanks. Hi, Teresa. Thanks again for your lovely presentation. I'm learning so much and I've made so many notes. I have 3 questions for you. The first one being, do you have any numbers? Like you mentioned a while back saying that when you accelerate any education, like a learning process, then you tend to put in more hours later on because it did not work. Do we have any data saying, okay, how much time more are we investing? Is it double? Is it triple?
Not that I'm familiar with at the moment, but I have like I have a bunch of articles that haven't funny enough, haven't time to read yet. But so no, not at the moment. Not that I'm familiar with, at least.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. And the second one I have is because if we talk about the fast-paced learning styles that, you know, many areas in the world, they follow, there is also something with, no, Daniel, quickly, no. Sorry, give me one moment, my child. No, thank you. The anxiety and the stress that comes along with it when, you know, things are going fast-paced. I'm sorry, give me just a moment.
Yeah, it's okay. Perhaps when we hear from, she's back now.
Sorry.
Okay.
So the mental stress and the anxiety that comes with fast education, how do you, like when we talk about slow education, we are also addressing to that phenomenon as well. Then do you also include the numbers on that to back this up, saying this will slow down that phenomenon? You know, what, do you understand what I'm trying to say?
Yeah, I think I understand, and I'm not sure that with my PhD project that I can come up with some results and say this is also good for that and have something to back it up with. But my hope is that, well, I see some kind of perhaps it's not I don't have any like big reports or research to back it up. From my own experience, my own children and their school day, I think there's room for another approach in our schools, and I would hope that a slower approach. If you imagine a school day where you come in and you start the day by going out in the school garden and checking to if you have chickens and hens and what do they call that, and taking care of that and looking if there's anything in the garden that needs caring of or something we can harvest, and we go inside and perhaps do some drawings of the piece we found. And well, this is just me like blabbling along, but I think there's many more potential for an inspiring and joyful school day where we don't have a schedule and a timetable and a ticking clock and switching from one subject to another. I think that would be nice. And one of the things that I came across when I read Hartmut Rose's book was that he has this picture of a culture where our memory and what we concern as taking long time. If we're waiting on the bus and it's perhaps only 20 minutes that it's late, we would think of that as a long time. Time is dragging. But when we come home and everything is good on the next day, we kind of forgot that was kind of annoying and that was a long day. So the period seems long, but in a memory it like swims down. And then the other way around, if we have something that occupies us, one whole day could just like be gone like that. But in a memory, it grows and we remember it and it kind of sticks. And that's kind of something we think back on. But then we have another situation, and that's like the sapper tendency, where we, for example, sit in front of the TV and watching something, and all of a sudden you sat in your sofa watching TV or television for like 3 hours. So the times went like this, and in your memory, it also feels like this. And my reflections on that was, what if this is what children meet in their school day? So they go to school, they have 45 minutes of one subject, then they switch to another, then they switch to a third and perhaps another again, and so on. And they switch back and forth between school books and activities and forth and back and new subject and all kinds of things in a day. And when they come home and you ask them, so what did you do today? Did you have a nice day? I can't remember. So I think there's something interesting there. And I hope that a slower approach could perhaps give a more joyful school day for our school students and perhaps be helpful and be more inclusive for different kinds of students. Yeah, I'm not sure I answered your questions, but
you did. You did, Teresa. Thank you very much. I feel the last one would be very much, as I understand that you are experimenting this with few teachers already, and then your study can show the outcomes, because as you said, I mean, in Denmark, we have like those 45 minutes of lecture time, and it changes. So I wish you all the best, and I'm hoping the results to be positive so it can be rolled out nationally. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah. So should we like move on, Connie, to the next?
Yeah.
I lost track of time.
Yeah, it's a couple of minutes to 4. And I was let's do that, Therese. Let's move on to your idea that you were thinking of sharing with us or wanting to share with us.
Yeah. So this is just like me freestyling based on what I read from the literature and Yeah, I think it's a funny idea. Perhaps you think otherwise, but perhaps you can just like think about it and then come along with some ideas or yeah. But I'll show you now. So and then we see what.
Yeah, you basically want responses to your idea, right?
Yeah. And it could also be like that you come up with your own ideas and think, oh, you could do that as well. And I tried to like design as an activity for, I would say, like 5th grade. And this is here and my, yeah, perhaps I will show you and then you could like reflect with yourself for a couple of minutes. Why does this have anything to do with the slow principles and ideas and visions that I showed you? So I draw it. So sorry for that, but I will walk you through it. So the project here would be like a project-based activity, and the project would be like baking carrot cake for our school party. And this is a school where we have like school gardens and places where we can grow carrots. So we are like sowing carrot seeds together and we're waiting and we are caring for the carrots throughout the summer. And then we are harvesting the carrots. And then we, of course, need to bake the carrot cakes. And then we have a party. So I'm not saying anything. This is what's going to happen. And then I had some suggestions for these unexpected adventures. So I called them expected unexpected adventures because this is what my imagination could come up with. And one of the things that could be someone's suggestion what would happen if we left a carrot behind, leaved it, and didn't use it for a carrot cake, but just find out how would it look like next year. There would also be something like, well, how many carrots do we actually need for the carrot cake and how many seeds do we need to sow? There could also be some kind of artful inquiry or meaning making, and my suggestion here would be The Life of Carrot, a short story. And there would also be the possibility to like use some mathematics and measurements of these carrots. How do they look like and how long and fat are they and so on. So many more. So this is my suggestions for a slow education activity. And I would like your response to it and whether you think this would be something that could work in a school context or just whatever comes to mind. And it's okay, you can have some thinking time. Yeah, we have a hand.
I guess my question is, how do you sort of seed, no pun intended, the expected unexpected adventures? And what happens if, like your carrot cake doesn't work? Or so I guess I'm more interested in the seeding of these? Is it do the students come up with the ideas? Is it, is there a mechanism behind sort of the? I guess I'm more interested in the unexpected adventures. What's the catalyst behind them?
Well, my hope would be that it would be the students that come up with some ideas, and I also think that it would be kind of okay for the teachers to initiate that. So we like grew all these carrots, and we took picture and of the seeds and the starting carrots and the baby carrots, and we like documented the journey from start to end. And now it would be nice to like imagine that you are a carrot. Perhaps you read them the story of A.C. Andersen, the Christmas tree. So they have like, and you could invite the Danish teacher to a cooperation here, and so some of the things I think could be initiated from the teacher, and perhaps inspire the children to pull in some of their own experience and their own investigations, and I think that in 5th grade, if they are like educated in this, if they are used to this way of working, I think that perhaps some of the ideas would come easily, and I think for me, from my perspective, I know the feeling of having like a plan and wanting to proceed with that, and leaving very little room for students' questions and ideas, because this is not in my plan. Perhaps it was in my plan 2 weeks ahead, and then I kind of forgot that this was actually something that the students asked for. So this more like flexibility in the way we plan our teaching activities would be also, I think, necessary if the students really they need to take ownership. So if I'm the only one telling them what to do in what order, then there's little room for curiosity and ownership and engagement from their point of view. Yeah, but I know and I understand that we have some obstacles in our educational system, the way it is and is working right now. So many teachers would probably say that's not possible, but perhaps it is.
Yeah, I guess I was thinking more about like the mechanisms. Is it like like the relationship to, let's say, participatory design, in a sense, where the students are sort of engaged in this from the beginning, where they know, okay, we have this divergent phase, right? If you look at convergent and divergent thinking, and as a teacher or facilitator, I don't think it's only about 5th graders. We can easily see it in our own meetings at the university or in companies, is that, what are the mechanisms, or the ingredients to create those unexpected adventures, which I guess you would say could be seen as innovation or creativity also. And I think that's sort of interesting, right? I mean, when you see sort of some of the science outreach programs that some of us have experienced together recently, is that there is no unexpected adventures, right? Everything's expected, everything is scripted. But then how do you script for the unexpected? How do you?
Yeah, I'm not sure that you script for it in that way, but you are sensitive to when students come up with an idea, and you're going along with it. And yeah, so yeah, I understand what you're talking into.
Yeah.
But I don't think I have the answer to how you script the unexpected, because this was what my ideas. Yeah. That would be what I would find interesting and funny. I would like to see a carrot a year after. So this could could be any other kind of stuff. And perhaps I think my brain probably doesn't work like a fifth graders, but so they would come up with other kinds of things. And if I thought as a teacher that this was something of value to spend time of, I would implement it, and then we would follow along and see how it goes. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay, I see.
Thanks.
Wasim has marked again, and then I would like to comment also on this scripting question afterwards. Wasim?
Yeah,
You're
you
muted.
need to turn your mic.
Frankly, I have two questions. One question is as child, so I try to play the role of child.
Mm-hmm.
My question is, what do you mean by any, many more? Last step. That was the first. And so the second question is as trainee teacher, but for me as trainee teacher for science, I see science as error correction process. So maybe your slow approach can help me as trainee teacher to find a way how can I improve my error correction process, because for me science is iterative process and I need to engage with the students for error correction. So it's our solution is not perfect. We need to refine it. We need to correct it. How you will help me as trainee teachers in your slow approach? That's the second question. If this diagram can help me, frankly, I search how to find feedback loop. Where is the feedback for me as trainee teacher? But I can't find it. So that's the second question.
Well, I'm not sure I have a good answer right now.
No, it's not. It's only questioning. It's about questioning. I'm not searching about answering, frankly, but I only need to share my questioning or my curiosity. That's it.
Yeah. Well, I would still think. Well, I could perhaps start by I haven't finished the book yet, but I know that Isabella Stengers wrote a book that's called Slow Science, and she's occupied with science at university level. And I think that would be an interesting way of seeing what science is and how we do science in a slower way and slow academia approach. And perhaps I would just like think that I'm just stepping back here. This one, I think that in like this exchange between a student and teacher, where you like problem solve or correct and find out where are the mistakes and how can we think about that. I would think that some of these keywords here would be perhaps helpful. That there needs to be some thinking time where I think in my head, and I need to kind of talk to some others and reflect together with other peers. And it also, it's okay to revisit and not have the full answer in 10 minutes or in a half an hour, and just like return to it, leave it behind and return to it if that is necessary. But you probably have some kind of strict timeline when you do your teaching and guiding afterwards. But I think some of those are could help thinking and reflecting together, and that would be my answer at the moment.
Yes, thanks.
So just I have two things that I'd like to mention, and one of them is in relation to this question of that Daniel was raising about scripting for the unexpected. And I would like to throw a word in there, which is staging instead of scripting. So there's an important difference between when you script something, you actually really predefine what is going to happen. I mean, a script is a kind of like a manuscript, at least in a dramaturgical sense, and a staging is a more like you're kind of preparing something for a situation, or you're making a situation that can unfold, right? So there's an embedded openness in staging that is not associated with the scripting. So I think that's a kind of nice sort of, from performance studies, a nice nuance to think with if we want to try to work with the unexpected. Then the other comment that I would like to share or reflect with you is, about the kind of really high order things that are also in play when we talk about things like slow and education, and which I find that you also provide when you think about the philosophical and the learning theory, and also the specific educational practices. And those are the things that have to do with time and organization, and the way that the time actually organizes school life, and scheduling as a basic kind of like really organizational mechanism, where you decide where some bodies are supposed to be in some spaces at some times, right? So it's a kind of, you could even say it's a scripting or a choreography of particular kinds of energy in particular kinds of place and space at the same time. And that has to do with discipline and with socialization. So, there's a kind of, organizing has to do with order. So it's a way of creating order, that when you decide that this is how we organize school life, it's also because you want to maintain a particular kind of order. And that order is built on industrialization and the way that you think about industrial production. I mean, it's very much a kind of, something that we have been delivered or has been delivered with modernity. And so those are some of the, those are the like really big societal reflections or critique or whatever you want to call it, that this, that something like a carrot cake can actually be unfolding. Because with this carrot cake example, you are unfolding a different kind of temporal and spatial organization, basically. And it's a utopian project in some ways, I would say, right? But it's also something that you can do, because you can actually make it tangible and make it concrete, and experiment with it in the ways that you have been unfolding and that you are also wanting to gather. So just to kind of round back to Sakina's comment and question about mental stress and anxiety, and whether whether you were using some of the descriptions or facts about mental health in our society, whether you are using that to back up your thesis. I mean, that is a valuable contribution, I think, to kind of, it's a part of the problem space, or you could make it a part of the problem space without necessarily wanting to provide objective facts about it, but as a kind of, lining out the problem space.
Thank you.
I think staging is a much better word.
And it kind of got me to reflect that sometimes you like do a teaching sequence and have a design, and the first time you do it, you don't know what's going to happen, and that room and possibilities you explore there with your students is kind of new and exciting. And then next year you try to do it with a new set of students, and you are kind of expecting the same things to happen, and then it doesn't come out the same way. And in my experience, it often isn't as fruitful as the first time or authentic as the first time, because I'm pushing some kind of expectations ahead and through the students, and I'm not able of letting them reflect on the things and have the time for them to come up with their perspectives and idea, because the first time we did this, the student did this and that, and this is what I want to come around with in as fast as possible. So it's always, I think, difficult to repeat something that was successful the first time, because you are already expecting it to be the same again. Yeah.
Yeah, but I think also, I mean, Daniel's questions about participatory design and also about problem-based learning, they raise an important, theme of the student or pupil perspective, and what is the why, what is the motivation, why are we doing this, why should we be interested in carrots, for example.
Yeah.
It's kind of like, and there's something there about about agency and interest, motivation, student experience, pupil experience, that is also really valuable to think with, I think.
And it's a good question. Shouldn't be interested and motivated by carrot, but perhaps not, but perhaps the party theme and being a part of a community where you have a common goal. You want to bake cake for your parents and have a nice evening, and through that setting you are building on some kind of learning possibilities. There are many learning possibilities in this, and I think it's perhaps that is one of the things that teachers should be good at. Where is the learning possibilities in this sequence, in this learning design? And I can point out many things where I think there would be like a scientific content that would align with what we want our school system and our subjects in school to come across, to cover. So my thought is, or my expectations would be, that we can actually be really creative in the way we plan our teaching and our teaching sequences and activity, and still we could like say, well, I'm doing what I'm supposed to do. I'm not like totally freestyling and going out of control and doing stuff that is not relevant. So I would think this would be really relevant, and I can combine it with a lot of other subjects.
Yeah. Great. Thank you, Therese. And since there are no more hands, I think that we will... Oh, you have one. Okay, Daniel.
In some ways, it sort of reminds me of Paulo Freire's pedagogy of the oppressed in some ways. I'm wondering if you should just sort of take a look in that direction, because there is sort of his sort of philosophy about working with illiterate people in Brazil and how they sort of want to I think Wasim has a good point. It might be interesting to sort of look at that, because there are some overlaps that might inspire you or might not, depending on things. But it's sort of like, it's a very active way of learning if you take some of if you sort of put the politics a little bit on the side, of problem solving and motivation, and the difference between how, different sort of economic people might have a different problem solving approach. And I think it's that sort of action and sort of reflection that you're trying to get, is that, there's a lot of reflective practice in this notion of like the unexpected adventure. What does this really mean? Like, how many carrots do we really need? Right, or etc. So I don't know. It's
Frankly,
a little bit.
I'd hear something, because I'm really interested in your questions, Therese, and I spent some time to invest how to understand the problem, not to solve it, frankly. But I find Paulo Freire very helpful for me to understand this phenomena. He called it oppressions in his terms. In German context, we have here Hartmut Rosa. Hartmut Rosa also put it in a good way, but he named it, he called it alienation. It's a very old term philosophically. And until now, I can't find a term to describe my sittings. It's not oppression and not alienation. I need to search and find a term that help me describe the phenomena. But until now, I can't find it, because I have some students who are migrants they were in their homeland oppressors in terms of bouleverie. Here in Germany, they are oppressed. So I have very difficult situation. And in Harmut Rosa term, they are more in West culture, not in other culture. So it doesn't help me also. And I need to develop my own term. And if you can help me, that would be very helpful. For if you can reflect in your practice what term can works, what research notion can help to develop inquiry or to develop experiment, that would be very helpful for me also.
Yeah, I will keep that in mind.
Really, it's really. But until now, it's very complex.
So what you're after is a term that helps describe the situation of your students or your pupils. Yeah.
Yes.
So they're kind of existential or pedagogical.
They are existential questions because they were in their homeland. Okay, they are. I think they are rich. They have money. They were stable, and then they come to Germany. They are depressed. They are under pressures and so on. And I have very complex situations because most of the migrants, they are okay in their homeland, but when they come to Germany, they are more depressed or alienated or something. But this form of alienation is different of alienation described by Harmut Rosa.
Yeah.
Because Harmut Rosa book about modern society and post-industrializations or but most of the students come from Middle East or from Iran, they are different cultures, so you have different settings, different understanding, maybe worldview, different worldview. It's very complex situations, but frankly, I don't know how to solve it until now. I didn't find the term.
This may not be relevant, but I'm going to say it anyway. But there's something about hybridity and mixtures. So, for example, one concept that I'm using at the moment is monstrous. So monstrous, like from the monster, right? So something about something that has mixtures in it that are impure. And this is connected also with things like not in a psychological sense, but the schizoid. So being a part that is split somehow. These are some theoretical strands, you could say, that might relate to what you are describing, because it has partiality embedded in it. We can talk more about that.
Yes, gladly. I'll do my best to make at least my settings clear for you, because I search for good term. Monster is the term I documented here. I'll check it out.
Good. Yeah. All right, everyone. Thank you for inspiring presentation, Therese, and thank you for taking us through both the philosophical aspects of SLO and also providing an idea for how it can translate into specific educational practices. This is, it's very inspiring. And thank you for great participation also from the audience. And we will, this session has been recorded and we will upload it on our web pages, and you are welcome to check it out there. We have a next nice webinar in November, and I'm just going to see if I can find the date for that. 1 second. Yes, we have one the 26th of November, where we will be hearing Tina Maria Brenks, also a NAFA PhD fellow, and she will tell about science teacher educator learning networks, and focus on how to visualize and investigate collaboration and knowledge creation. And we actually also have one earlier, and I'm kind of struggling to find when that exact date is, but it is in early November. And yeah, found it, the 13th of November. So we have two of these nice webinars in November, the 13th and the 26th. So hope to see you again there. And
Okay.
thank you for now, and have a nice
Thanks for
afternoon.
the presentation and for the organizations. Goodbye from
Bye-bye.
Germany. Goodbye.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.